Hey everyone, Pugs here with 2 new reviews for y'all. Today I'm reviewing Fools in April and Neptune Spatula. And, well, one of these episodes I'm gonna have a lot more to say about than the other one. I already know that. And not just because I've already written the script. I just know that I like one of these episodes a lot more than the other one, so. But, I'm still excited to talk about both, so that's good at least. And as always, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who's been watching, liking, commenting, the works. You guys are awesome. And without further ado, let's just get this show on the road and jump right into these reviews. First up today is Fools in April. And, I actually used to dislike this episode. And no, I'm not pulling the same joke I did for Opposite Day. I really mean it here. I used to dislike Fools in April. And it's kind of pretty weird to think back on that because, I love this episode so much now. And I think, the main reason I used to dislike this episode is because I felt it was way too mean-spirited. And I was right because, Squidward is mean-spirited here. But, that's not a question. But, frankly, it's not as bad as it could have been as, he does get his due, with the townspeople shunning him and, of course, him getting pranked hard in the end. So. And, I also used to get mad. Well, okay, mad is kind of a strong word, but, you get the point. So I used to get, mad at how weird and abrupt the ending was, but, that's the whole point of it. And I'll get back to that later. But for now, let's just talk about some other parts of this episode. So I think I feel a special connection to this episode because, like SpongeBob, I'm an April Fool's, aficionado. I change my social media profiles for April Fools, try to act differently than I normally do, dress differently if I really feel like it. I do try to pull some harmless pranks when I can get around to it. It's just such a fun holiday for me. And, it's coming up too, so I better start brainstorming actually, because I haven't really put any thought into it. But anyway, SpongeBob in this episode, he's just so cute with his enthusiasm for this holiday, and the fact that it's his favorite holiday is just even cuter to me, that he wants to pull pranks on his friends. I just think that's so cute. Oh my god. And I know I keep saying it, but it's true. Okay, season 1 knocked it out of the park with how cute SpongeBob is, which is something that I think it was kind of left by the wayside until season 10 or 11, kind of. Throughout the rest of the seasons, he has his cute moments, but I feel season 1 was really just on it. And I feel these later seasons have been getting back on it too. But in the middle, it was more moments rather than a whole trend, But anyway, like the topic of the episode implies, Fools in April is a pretty funny episode. And at the very least, it's thoroughly entertaining. Squidward trying to apologize is hilarious, and I love that they stuck an ass joke in there. I can't believe they got away with that. But it was even worse in Christmas Who, so I don't know. I really don't know how they got away with that. And Squidward's prank is hard to watch, but the writers toe the line excellently between making the audience uncomfortable on purpose, but not too uncomfortable, And the prank doesn't last too long, and we cut away from the horrible prank multiple times to see Squidward's reactions, which provides some levity in that bad situation. And this episode also uses an aspect to SpongeBob that I can't remember being revisited until SpongeBob meets the Strangler, which is that SpongeBob can be pretty smart sometimes, and he will use those smarts to be a huge troll. Yep, I'm talking about Troll Bob. I love this aspect of SpongeBob's character. Think about it. If, as I interpret it, his whole reaction to Squidward's prank was fake, and he was really impressed by Squidward's prank, like Patrick says, then it seems to me SpongeBob planned his prank revenge right then and there when he cried and ran out of the Krusty Krab. That's brilliant, and I love it. Also, I just think it's so fun how this episode can be interpreted in some different ways, whether SpongeBob was legitimately upset or not, and if the ending has any meaning whatsoever or is just random. And, this isn't really something you usually see in a show like SpongeBob SquarePants. So I'm glad episodes like these aren't too common, though, because then it would really start to impact the comedy and, simple nature of the show. But when the show does, delve into this, kind of layered type writing, I think they do it pretty well. Anyway, Every character is pretty good in this episode. Like I said before, SpongeBob's adorable, and I really like the first segment of the episode of him pulling pranks, and Mr. Krabs is only in this episode briefly, but I love how he gets in on the joke with SpongeBob when Squidward is originally pranked. It's that parental figure relationship, I'm telling you guys. Squidward is also good in this episode, even if he is a huge jerk, because he does come to regret his actions, and then he fumbles trying to apologize for a good few minutes. And Patrick is also hilarious support, chewing the wire and, frankly reminding Squidward that he's a jerkwad. So, everyone's pretty good here. And so now, I guess, let's just talk about that ending, like I said before. Yes, it's extremely random and abrupt, and that's perfect. Firstly, I think it fits an episode about April Fools, a holiday that's all about jokes and pranks and randomness. And like I was talking about before, in my interpretation of this episode, this whole thing at the end is an elaborate makeup prank against Squidward. I mean, I guess that part's basically a given. The real debate is kind of when SpongeBob started his revenge prank. And as for that debate, I think it's funnier if SpongeBob started his revenge prank immediately after being pranked. And so his whole upset feelings he displayed once he got home were just an act. And, that would give the peak Troll Bob vibes that I love. So I guess this is kind of a bit of a longer review than usual. So I guess let me just, sum everything up. I really like this episode because it's hilarious and actually has, some kind of layered writing, which makes things interesting and fun to, engage with. And I just, enjoy this episode a lot. And so that's why this episode is coming into my amazing tier with a score of 9 out of 10. Coming up next, we've got Neptune's Spatula. And when I first reviewed this episode, I kind of noticed that it had very few reviews on the forum. And, I think that kind of says quite a lot about this episode. Primarily that it's very forgotten, unfortunately. Now, Neptune's Spatula is not a favorite of mine by any means, but I still think it ought to be remembered because it's still a good episode. And even if it was bad, I'd say the same thing. I kind of just don't really like when episodes are completely forgotten, like I fear this one has been, but maybe not, maybe it hasn't, I don't know. But let me just do my part in talking about it, so how about that? So Neptune's Spatula introduces us to King Neptune, and sometimes I wonder if we were supposed to see more of him, because he's not exactly a one-off character, but he's not really a secondary character. I guess more of a tertiary character, and I guess it makes sense to have those kinds of characters too. It just feels weird because I don't think there are a lot of characters that fall into the same category as King Neptune. Or I guess recurring character is probably the correct term, but anyway, maybe SpongeBob's parents. I don't know, I'm getting off track, but let me just get back to talking about King Neptune. So, I don't really feel one way or another about the guy. He is pretty funny. I love his dramatics. I also find it hilarious that he's so self-absorbed, which is a perfect parody of a god, if you ask me. That part where he starts flexing with Larry is pretty funny and says a lot about both of their characters. And also, it's just kind of funny to me that technically Bikini Bottom, or I guess all of the sea, I'm not really sure, has a king, because Bikini Bottomites surely don't live like you'd expect them to in a monarchy. I wonder, is Bikini Bottom, or all of the sea, I guess, a constitutional monarchy? I mean, they have mayors, right? I don't know. What's really going on here? I don't know. I guess I demand an episode, actually, that delves into the complexities of the government of this land, or sea. But, yeah. As for the episode itself, to move on, I think it's a pretty fun watch, if a bit underwhelming. While Neptune's Spatula is not exactly dull, there is a constant feeling that I have watching this episode of this episode could have done more of that. And do I know exactly what, quote-unquote more is, or even what, quote-unquote that is, for that matter? Not really, but that's just how I feel about this episode, vibe-wise. Maybe it's the jokes that cause this feeling, they don't really hit as hard in Neptune's Spatula for the most part. The bartering scene between Neptune and Patrick is undoubtedly hilarious, and the showering gag gets me every time, because, they really just had, Tom Kenny just doing all kinds of crazy stuff in season 1. He was, I remember I was watching, the audio commentary for Karate Choppers, and he said that he had to, paint his face red to do, the hot sauce bit in Karate Choppers, okay, and, he does Patchy, he was just doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but, yeah, I think the main problem of this episode is that it takes a bit too long to get to the actual cook-off, and then the cook-off ends so underwhelmingly. I feel like we were only just getting into it when the whole thing ends with Neptune tasting one of SpongeBob's delicious patties after, everyone spits out his nasty ones. And maybe it would have been better if it was like the Fry Cook games, where it was like Neptune and SpongeBob competing in multiple culinary-related competitions. I'm not really sure. It doesn't really bother me all that much, so I'm not going to think too deeply about it. And as per usual, SpongeBob is super cute in this episode. Like, I loved the part where he was making the singular Krabby Patty with love, tucking it in, reading it a story, all that. Like, it shows how much he cares about his cooking in such like an adorable way too. And though I kind of wonder why SpongeBob didn't use his help wanted patty cooking powers, I mean, I guess I know why from a writing standpoint, obviously. It was to show the difference between Neptune's shortcuts and impersonal creating versus SpongeBob's manual labor of love. But like, what's the in-universe reason? I'll never know, so I can only guess that quick patty making came from the spatula, the hydrodynamic spatula. But episodes like SpongeBob versus the Patty Gadget do beg to differ on that. Okay, let me not overthink things. I know the actual reason. It's just fun to pretend like I don't, or that there's another reason, okay? So to kind of sum everything up, Neptune's spatula is a bit underwhelming, but I still quite enjoy watching it. Well, okay, let me qualify that a bit. I enjoy watching it when I'm doing like an episode marathon, because this isn't really an episode I rewatch very often, which of course means it loses some points in my book, but it's still a good episode, and that's why it's being put in my good tier, coming in with a score of 7.8 out of 10. As always, I just wanted to close out this review with some closing thoughts of mine, and I just have to reiterate how much I love that Fools in April is an episode that can have different interpretations. Like, I just think it's pretty impressive for a comedic cartoon episode. And this just makes me more excited for when I'll hopefully talk about SpongeBob versus the Strangler in the future, because that episode is super interesting, and I love talking about it. And I guess now this is the part where I'm just going to spitball for a bit, so have fun with that. But speaking of the future, I'm still just kind of trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Like, I told y'all about, my plans for what I'm going to do for my Season 1 overview, and that's still happening. But I'm thinking past that. Like, I want to review all the episodes, like, of this show on this channel, but, like, that's a project years in the making. And, like, can I even commit to that? That's a great question. I don't really know. Like, for the next few months I can, sure, but it's kind of hard to say any further than that. And I can't be one of those people who, like, reviews all the episodes of a season in one video, because, like, I have low-tech editing, that's not going to work. And also, I just kind of want these reviews to be somewhat digestible, both for me and, for anyone who happens to watch. And I don't know, me personally, I am not someone who can watch a video that's super long, so yeah. But anyway, I guess I'm just, like, rambling and spitballing now, so I guess I'll just try and figure out what I'll do. As it is, still got 2 more episodes to review, so I guess I'll see you guys next time for the last Season 1 episode reviews with Hooky and Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2.